Hello, everybody here in the Product Board Prague office, and hello, everybody online. I'd like to welcome you to the 10th edition of TechUncovered series, so we have a little bit of celebration. Today, the topic is platform engineering, and as always, I won't bother you too long with my stuff, and I'll hand over the word to my colleague, Pepa, who will lead the conversation today. So take it away.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you for joining both in person and online. Hello. So today we're going to dive into a topic of platform engineering. As you know, it's a topic that's kind of emerging in the industry. Everyone speaks about it, yet nobody really knows what it is. So today we will kind of deep dive into it, what it is in our company. So we have here Martin from Pipedrive, Stano from Kiwi, and then Jiří from Product Board, with myself being Pepa from Muse to basically talk about it. I think there's a lot of kind of these emerging topics. You have like staff engineering. It's also a thing that kind of the word exists, but everyone implements it a bit differently. So we'll see if that holds for platform as well. And without further hesitation, I would like to ask all of you to basically introduce yourself to the audience quickly, and also mention what platform means to you and your environment that you are speaking of. So do you have like microservices? Do you have monolith? Do you have something in between? So Jiří, if you can start from
Alrighty, I can go first. So hello everybody, my name is Jirka, and I look after the whole platform engineering organization here at Product Board. We are in the transition phase from monolith to a bunch of microservices. So we are on the journey. We are not quite there yet. And for me, engineering platform is about making the product engineering teams more efficient. Essentially, allow them to focus on their mission, on bringing the value to their customers, and not having to think about the low-level technical details, and building internal tools and internal products to essentially make them ship their features to the customers as fast, as efficiently as possible.
Thanks. Stano?
So hi everyone, I'm Stano from Kiwi. Regarding the environment, we have actually microservice-oriented architecture, so having actually hundreds of microservices running in production. And what platform engineering means to me is basically when we started the team back in 2017, our main claim was the better software faster. And I still believe this persists because we and our team is trying to enable the production engineering to create, develop, and operate better software in a faster way.
Cool. And you, Martin?
Hello, my name is Martin. I come from Estonia, and I work in Pipedrive. I was hired actually 6 years ago to create the platform engineering team in Pipedrive, and I have been leading this area since. We have 50-50. Half of the traffic is handled by the monolith and the other half is by microservices. So we are also in this transition. It will take time, but we are trying to do it. And I agree, it's platform engineering is about product engineering efficiency. But in Pipedrive, we already have like other platforms as well, like product platform, because we are doing multi-product, mobile platform and so on. So yeah, the definition of engineering platform precisely is something we can talk about today.
Cool. I'll join as well. So I'm Pepa from Muse. I'm doing the same thing that all of these guys do in Muse. I was the only member of platform years back, and it grew since. For me, platform, I call it basically in organizations, you have two types of people. You have value creators. Those are the people who kind of directly create the value. So think of a salesperson that simply sells stuff, right? That's the value they create is kind of directly visible. But then there is other group of people, and those are value enablers or value multipliers. They do not create the value directly, but basically through others trying to, as you said, make everyone else efficient and satisfied. So for me, platform is the overall experience of creating value in use, basically. And so great. I can see we all agree partially, but it's still, I guess, a bit abstract for those who don't have platform teams maybe in their organization or are still starting to grow them. So we'll dive into more details. We will be accepting questions during the talk as well as in the end. I guess during it we will take maybe just one, kind of being stating the topic. There is already one. Would you consider code-based intelligence refactoring according to part of the platform? So let's, so that I hold true to my word, let's take first question. Would you consider product code-based internals team, refactoring, non-product development, coding rules, etc., part of platform engineering? Jiří, what do you think? Is coding rules, non-product development, and refactoring part of platform engineering?
So from my perspective, building the tooling to help you evaluate whether you are adhering to the rules and to measure the healthiness of the code base, that's something naturally platform engineering would be building in my eyes. On the other hand, I don't think that you can decide what the rules are, what principles you want to follow just in isolation. I think that's a discussion that needs to happen in a wider forum with the product engineers in the same room, because they will be the ones ultimately mostly impacted by the rules that you are trying to implement. So in a nutshell, help out with the tooling, yes, but not decide what rules need to be followed in isolation.
Cool, thanks. I'm the moderator of the session, if you have noticed, but I will also try to answer some of my questions. That puts me in a trickier but also beneficial position. Anyway, so as I said, it's we all kind of agreed on what it is. It's still, I guess, a bit abstract in a way. Martin, could you describe what teams exactly and what kind of type of structure you have in Pipedrive that you call platform?
Our organization maybe doesn't reflect this one-to-one, but we have backend platform team which owns some of the services, backend services which are not product related directly, like gateways, some sidecar service discovery related. Then front-end platform, which owns the front-end framework, convention UI. Then we created separately storage platform team because we have this interesting choice of how we store our customers' data. Let's not go into there right now. Then we have a separate DevOps tooling team, which mostly deals with developing CI/CD, which is also our custom made.
Cool. And for you? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's
for
it.
You, Stano?
Yeah, regarding the teams, we have like quite many, and it was like developing over the years, obviously. Currently, we have an infrastructure team there, including the app security team and software platform together. This setup kind of like used to be like super beneficial for us, because if infrastructure team came in with the new technology or new provider of the technology, or speaking about the cloud providers and so on, it was previously kind of disconnected towards the application development. And putting this together under one roof actually proved that it makes sense to really consider the end-to-end journey, really from the low-level things like what is its CPU, what is the services, towards the application, like how you want to handle incidents in the application and so on. So this is something what's working nice. We added also security there, because from the infrastructure perspective and also like backend development perspective and so on, it's very tightly connected. So we try to also focus on like prevention and trying to building the secure environment by default. On top of that, we have like clients platform, which is doing the basically platform engineering also for the client services, which is mobile applications and front ends.
Cool. And for you, Jiří, and product board?
So on our end, it's a pretty broad spectrum. So on one end of the spectrum, you have the infrastructure team, which is taking care of our AWS accounts, Terraform, observability tooling, how do you deploy to production, etc., etc. Then moving on in the spectrum a little bit higher up, you have the DevX team, which looks after CI/CD, all the developer tooling, how they run their own little instance of product board on their local machine. They own parts of the front-end platform, so the application shell, components around data fetching, GraphQL, etc. And then moving on to even further, like on the spectrum, you have the design system team building ready-made components that you can reuse on the front end and accelerate the development. And in our case, we also have the data engineering team as part of the engineering platform. That's also like a vital part.
Thanks. So in Muse, we have also an infrastructure team and DevOps team. We also have data science kind of tribe in platform, so data engineering, but also data scientists and some data analysts. Then there is also product security as well in platform in Muse. Then we kind of big part is developer experience, so kind of building the core libraries, frameworks, and enabling kind of best practices in coding across the whole Muse. Design system as well is part of platform in Muse. Then there is quality engineering, so kind of we overall we haven't said it, but basically platform is something where we don't have a customer outside of the company, but mainly kind of inside the company. So we treat others as customers. I think we will get to that topic later as well in more depth about a team that addresses QA engineers basically as customers as well. And I hope I did not forget anyone. So cool. That's the structure. We have the structure. We have what it is. But how do we know? We said a lot. It's about helping others. It's supporting others. It's multiplying others, etc. How do we know we are successful in in that? Right? That's kind of a hard question, I think, for all of us to answer. But still, it's a big topic. So Stano, how do you know that the platform teams are doing a good job?
Yeah, it's super difficult to measure somehow the efficiency of changing the efficiency, and I believe this is really common for all of our companies. But we try to actually combine that like hard metrics with like more software metrics for that. So if we are speaking about the infrastructure, we try to connect the cost of the infrastructure to some like business metric, for it's the bookings or amount of the search, and what's the cost of the infrastructure beneath that. The aim is, as company grows and as like booking searches is coming up, the cost of the infrastructure should be staying like pretty much same or like growing, but very much slower. So that's the reason we have some like KPIs basically in there. That's like one kind of the measurements. The other is also the adoption rate. So how do we know that we are like successful? Is that actually engineering teams are adopting our products, are adopting our tools, our building blocks, and using them on daily basis in their systems. That's two things. Obviously, there must be always some kind of way of feedback. So really speaking to the production engineers, gathering the feedback and trying to have the discussion about if we are supporting them well or not.
Cool. Martin, what about you? How do you know your platform is successful?
Yeah, we can measure some things, like we introduced a new bootstrap for Node.js microservices, and then we can measure how many of new services are using that new bootstrap. Secondly, I started to distinguish platform incidents. So when an incident happens, I try to figure out whether it's an isolated incident in one specific product feature, or it is a platform incident. So this is also one way to measure how good your platform is, meaning how isolated those product-related microservices are. Can they affect each other, and so on.
And for you, Iri?
I would say 3 main sources of information for me. First of them is quantitative feedback. So we track a bunch of KPIs around platform stability, pipeline duration, number of incidents, etc. Then it would be qualitative feedback around how engineers are satisfied with the products that we are offering. We run quarterly surveys that we send to the whole engineering, and we are trying to figure out if they are happy with the products we are providing, or if there are maybe some pain points that we are not addressing yet. And then the third source of information for us would be telemetry from all the tools that we are building. So we try to have everything instrumented with Honeycomb, Datadog, and figure out, okay, which are the features that people are actually using and find valuable, and what are the areas that perhaps do not see such a good traction and where we can potentially improve.
And what about the, for example, a product alignment? If head of product comes to you and basically asks, or chief product officer, how is platform contributing to the success of our product? What would be your answer?
That comes down to quarterly planning in our case, where we have a set of company level OKRs, then EPD level OKRs, where EPD means engineering, product, and design, like the whole organization. And then we try to make sure that our OKRs, what we are delivering, is in line with where the organization is going. So it's a pretty natural top-down process to ensure the alignment across all the levels.
I see. And Stano, what would be your answer?
Good question. Yeah, pretty much we have also the OKRs in a very similar way. I would also say that platform engineering should be, in many cases, also enabler of the future features or the future growth of the company. So in case that we are talking some kind of discovery way about the new products we want to develop, there must be also somebody from the platform team telling, okay, but we need to build this first. And on top of that, we are capable to build this new shiny product. So that's the way we try to work.
Okay. And Martin?
Yeah, as we talked before, sometimes it's good when something bad happens, meaning that we had a pretty bad cases of slowness in spring, and it revealed many problems actually in our platform. So we have been fixing the things for half a year, and we are in much better shape, but it actually showed everyone what does it mean, or what are the consequences if you don't invest into platform. This technical and actually product debt will pile up and then explode one day. So someone needs to constantly take care of it. And as I mentioned, I was hired in Pipedrive to create that team. And then the problem was that when you are a small startup, you fail fast. You don't think of efficiency. You just try to find this product market fit. But by that time, Pipedrive had already 50-something engineers, 5+ teams, and then you suddenly start to see that different teams are tackling the same problem, and it is a conscious decision to start investing into platform by creating a separate team with a separate headcount and their own priorities, basically.
Yeah, definitely. So even in Muse, basically, is the case that the platform needs to, in the end, kind of support the business, support the product, and thus its strategy, plans, roadmap, everything needs to be aligned to what we are doing on the product side, and basically showing how we help the product to achieve its goals, and essentially kind of have the same goals for both platform and product. And the most common reason, I would say, that platforms do not manage to make that happen is that I always say that when I'm talking to a product manager in a product team, we have the advantage on platform that every developer in platform is a domain expert, right? That's something that on product is not the case. Not every developer is a domain expert in kind of the area they're developed. So we have the privilege to work with a lot of domain experts in terms of what they are doing. But it's also a problem because everyone has their opinion on what the product should be, and every developer likes to try new technologies. Every developer likes to refactor the code they're working on, and by that we sometimes lose this kind of customer centricity. By customer, I mean the internal customer, which is a developer or a designer for design system or a QA engineer or anyone in the product counterpart. And that brings us to this kind of question, like, is platform also a product? And if so, how can we basically learn from product management itself and apply the same principles to platform engineering, to deeply technical work? Is that something you apply? And I will intentionally ask you the last one, because obviously I would expect that in product board you do, but I'll start with Stano. Have you basically seen that approach also coming to your organization, and what are some of the practices that you applied as well to platform?
Yeah, yeah, very, very good question and very valid. We are still like in the transformation of like moving towards like more towards the product development actually inside the platform as well. The key thought here is just we need to realize that we have internal customer and we need to treat them like in the similar way as the external customer. And I can like oversimplify it, if you like compare to like whatever like car industry or whatever else, if you have the assembly line which is working like very well, then cars could be very well delivered to the customer as they need. And we are here to be responsible for the assembly line which is working well, which is we decide if we build the product or if we buy the product, if we need to amend the product as well from the external partners and so on. So the product development approach is very, very valid from the platform perspective. And I think it's the future about like how we want to treat our customers, and basically we can learn a lot from the production engineers. I wanted also to say that before this approach, we were actually really trying to build that building block based on usage. It was CI template, either it was whatever automation on top of that and so on. Now we try to like really cover it into some specific stack. So if you think about the AWS marketplace, GCP marketplace, you can in few clicks actually get the application as you need it. So if you put a couple of parameters and it generates the good stack for you with the best practices already in place. And this is the way how I see it. This should be the product of the platform at the end of the day, not just a bunch of the tools, but rather really unified product with all the best practices as the Kibicom stack should be.
Cool. There is a question that says, do you have platform teams have product managers? Any pros and cons of having PMs versus only engineers, engineering managers, and tech lead? Martin, I want to ask you the same question, but also take in context that question. And
I was actually going to answer that. My first title in Pipedrive was engineering product manager. My job was to create the backlog for that team that didn't yet exist. And I managed that backlog for at least 3 years. And it was a struggle. Everyone has their ideas what should be refactored and so on. My strategy was just like 4 times a year delete half of the backlog. And then it worked. The stuff is still undone and no one cared about it eventually. So it is really important to prioritize the things we do in platform engineering as well, and it needs strong product management skills, I would say.
Is there a feature in product board you can delete half of the backlog by one click?
I will add it to product board as a feature request.
So Jiří.
So I absolutely think that internal platforms should be built as a product, and we should treat the internal customers the same way as we treat the external ones. We have a product management process in place for the platform. We try to follow our product excellence framework, and really make sure we collect the feedback from the internal customers, prioritize it based on the impact, share the roadmaps with what we are planning, etc., etc. So definitely yes. When it comes to having dedicated product managers, up until now, so we've been building the platform organization for the last, let's say, year and a half, and up until now, it was the engineering managers mostly doing the product management duties. But as we have grown, it's more and more work to do, and it would definitely benefit from having more focus. So we actually hired a dedicated technical product manager for platform. He didn't start yet. We are expecting him to come on board in October, but I think it's the next step of our product management process, and it will definitely improve the quality of the service that we provide to the rest of the company.
I hope he is watching. In Muse, we are actually hiring technical product managers, so if you know someone. But currently, it's the engineering leads basically doing the job of the product manager. It's even in their kind of responsibilities to do so. We try to use basically the same process and mindset that's used in product engineering in platform as well. And I think the major or like the major thing that kind of shifted us is like thinking about not just the outputs which engineers are used to do, like to refactor that code or to build that component or to implement that new framework, etc., but really kind of thinking that to an outcome, like what do I hope to achieve and how is it aligned basically with the goals. Like obviously not everything, then it's very easy to, especially like with OKRs and things like that, it's very easy to go to that path, like everything needs to be tied to a data point, everything needs to be a KPI, everything needs to be a metric. That's also like in Czech we say from wall to wall. So definitely not that, but basically using that they say thing like OKRs on platform and like really thinking what's the outcome of that thing. So for example, for infrastructure, if you for example implement a new database or you share the database, etc., the real outcome is, for example, the capacity of the infrastructure that increased, and that's a language that everyone can kind of talk about. Everybody understands what's the capacity of infrastructure and why is it important. Not everyone understands what's the difference between Postgres or sharded Postgres, etc. So I think that's kind of one thing that I will highlight from that topic. And the question is also around the pros and cons of having PMs versus only engineers. So I think it seems like we don't have product managers on platform yet in our companies. We are trying to get some. Obviously, Martin was an initial one, so you experienced a bit. So it's hard to compare it. On the other hand, I must say that from our experience, the engineering leaders are doing great job, even as a product managers. But obviously, it breaks their focus a bit. They are kind of spent to more things. So like the main reason why we are hiring the PMs is not that the engineering leaders or managers wouldn't be able to do that job as well to some extent, but because of that time limitation they have basically.
Well, about that, we managed to hire actually somebody. We don't actually call the role like technical product manager or something like that, but yeah, it's fairly fresh. I would say fairly new, and yeah, the main reason is actually dedication. That we can have somebody who have clear responsibilities about the gathering the needs and trying to like really then upsell the products towards the internal customer, versus somebody who is building that. That's the main advantage from my perspective as well.
Cool. And also, I think staff engineers actually also serve for that role partially as well, because they are kind of the bridge between platform and a product in that sense as well. So I think they definitely help us a lot on platform to assess like the priorities and what's the sentiment around the product, etc. Cool. Let's take another question. What is the ratio of platform to product developers in your companies, and is it enough for you, or do you see the ideal somewhere else? Does it even matter? The reason why I'm choosing these questions, actually, it's a discussion topic that we had planned anyway. So Martin, what's the ratio, and how, or to generalize that question a bit, how do you know that what's the proper staffing basically for the platform teams?
I guess the teams have grown organically. Currently, the ratio is around 50 platform engineers to in 320 total engineers. So it's a little bit less than 20%. I guess it also depends what are the challenges and how good is your platform, how much you want to invest. In Pipedrive, we have this flexibility, we have this missions framework that we can actually invite product engineers to come and help to build platform, and vice versa. Actually, I'm really pushing platform engineers to go and build product at least once a year to see how it is to actually use those tools or frameworks you have built in platform. Yep.
Good. Stano?
The ratio is pretty much similar, actually. I believe we have 40 something to 400 total engineers. If it's good or bad, that there are like a lot of actually articles and studies. I believe you already saw that. I like one article which says that at the size of the company of 5,000 total engineers, the platform team needs its own platform team. So yeah, but how do I consider that to being like successful at the platform regarding the ratio? It's that, again, if amount of the engineers, production engineers growing like at some speed, I see that platform engineering need to grow somehow slower, because they are there to build really efficient tools and also like trying to like buy versus build the strategy and so on. So we don't need to scale them like super linearly with the amount of the product or the engineers.
And Iri, how do you look at staffing of your teams?
So at Product Board, as a rule of thumb, we try to have roughly 20% of engineering be on the platform side, because as the organization grows, there is more communication required, more business as usual to attend to, etc. So there should be some linear or sublinear growth of the platform size compared to the total size of the engineering. In practice, I would say it's a little bit more complicated than that. So we have a longer-term roadmap. We see what's ahead of us, in the next 12, 18, 24 months. And then we always discuss, okay, so which of these things we want to prioritize, which need to run in parallel, which are maybe not so important, which we can postpone until later. And that's the primary input into the headcount conversation. So it's not like you would automatically get additional headcount as the engineering grows. It's more, as I said, like a rule of thumb, and the specific conversations happen around the roadmaps and the long-term plans.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's definitely, there is no silver bullet to it. There is no silver bullet to anything, really. But to this as well. And also it's different for different teams. Like you might have a different ratio for infrastructure, but you might have a different ratio for developer experience or security, etc. So I would basically, what we do is to break it up into those kind of segments, and then also each kind of segment has a different customer, right? So some teams are serving the whole company, some teams are serving just the QA engineers, etc. So the size of the customer base is different. Then also the ratio should be different, but also the ratio is not everything. Obviously, there are some parts that make sense to support the product teams, etc. The amount of product, new features, and so on. But there is also this roadmap kind of stuff that needs to be done basically, and it's very similar to a product teams basically, right? Where you also have the roadmap and you can ask the question like, what's the cost of delay? How do we want to accelerate that development or not? And yeah, good. There is another question which is a really great one, and that's, is your platform team reactive or proactive, in a sense, if they prepare tools, libraries, even before they are used, or take ownership of existing and improve? Iri. Are your teams proactive or reactive?
I would say proactive is the ideal case. So we try to understand where the puck is going to be, not where it is now, and be ready for the future needs. To be able to do that, you need to understand the long-term strategy, where the product is going, and anticipate what exactly you will need to deliver in the next 12, 18 months. At the same time, the world is not ideal. It's not always possible. Sometimes, something blows up. You need to be a little bit reactive and make sure you address the gaps. You can't say, hey, like we have the roadmap lined up for the next 2 years, and there's no way we are changing the priorities. So I would say it's always a combination of both, with proactivity being the preferred approach.
Yeah, I would say same, like pretty much same here. The proactivity is the ideal state, obviously, so trying to prevent the issue. The challenging might be actually that you need to somehow guesstimate the inefficiencies and problems which might occur in the future. And yeah, nobody has the crystal ball yet. So that's pretty difficult time to time. Yeah, if you understand strategy, you could get better approximation, like what to build and why to build it. But that is always tricky. Maybe the another point is that with our teams, for example, if we are talking about the infrastructure, we had or still we are having a lot of like operational requests. So I need help with that, I need help with this. And the thing is that this is also something we want to move towards the self-service. So in that way, it's not purely about the proactivity versus reactivity, but not being somehow like blocker for solving whatever operational issues it might occur on the production.
Yeah, that you opened up a great kind of another topic, the self-service. And the answer to that question, I think, is that actually both is needed because as we said, like the platform has this trait that if everything is fine, nobody knows about us in a way. If something goes south, everyone kind of points to platform also. Basically, that's why we need to look ahead way harder than the rest of the organization to kind of foresee the future needs, pain points, problems, etc. And it's super challenging, especially in like a scale-up startup environment where the team is growing rapidly. So it's very hard to foresee. Nobody has the crystal ball. You said yet, so I'm glad it's on the way. But in a way, there might be things like we cannot block the engineers. Basically, they cannot. What happens and may happen if one is not careful enough is that it creates this, okay, so there is this platform, they own everything we don't want to own, and they kind of own, have this kind of shared piece of our product. So when we miss something in the platform, we have to wait for the product teams, right? But that's not what we are trying to do. And it takes some effort to actually break that culture and make it really like an open, both proactive and reactive platform. Martin, you mentioned cross exposures, which I think is amazing. I think that contributes to kind of breaking that culture. But have you also seen that problem in Pipedrive? And
yeah, there are many aspects to that. If we're talking about reusable libraries as an example, so one product tribe starts to implement some product feature, and there is some piece of code which could be library. Now, the first problem is, are there enough, I don't want to say smart or knowledgeable engineers who would realize that, hey, this part of code is actually something that other teams could use. Maybe we should make it a library and hand it over to the platform. It doesn't happen all the times. We have seen and then secondly, yes, rule of thumb is that platform cannot block product feature releases or whatever product team needs to do. They will implement it during those projects, and later on we can take it over to into platform and make it a reusable library or so.
Cool. And on the topic of self-service platform, do you have parts of the platform that are already self-service? And could you give specific examples to the audience, like what we mean by self-service versus the current state, I guess?
By self-service, you mean?
Like a self-service platform, so that you're not blocking, so it's not like there is a hard dependency on the platform team to do something, like spin up a new service, but there is actually like tooling that they can, on their own, spin up the new service, and they don't have to wait for an actual human to do that on the platform side.
I guess our Pipedrive special case is that we have separated operational part and development part. So engineering platform in Pipedrive is all about writing this reusable code, basically, and then tooling around it. So there are all the tools and then frameworks are there for the product team to go and then write a reusable piece of code. So.
Cool. And do they do it?
Yep, time to time, but I definitely know cases where it didn't happen. So,
cool. Jiri, what about your platform as a self-service product? And
I would say for us, self-service is the preferred option, how to interact with platform. So as an example, we just recently introduced a feature in our internal development portal. We use Backstage from Spotify, and we introduced a feature where you can come in and provision a new microservice. So you just enter the name, you say what resources you need, like which database, with what capacity. You click a few buttons, and then everything is provisioned. And in a couple of minutes, you can have a service with the Hello World endpoint running in production, and you can just go in and start writing the business logic. You have a blueprint where everything is integrated into our observability stack, etc., etc. So definitely, I think we shouldn't be standing in the way of progress, and the tools we provide should allow as much self-service as reasonably possible.
And Stano?
Yeah, that's the way we want to go. We have kind of like this templating, cookie cutter stuff like a couple of years ago, and it's difficult for we have actually many microservices with different use cases, and it's not like just one fits them all, but it's rather about being also modular. So that's the way we want to see that. Yes, ideal state is to have it like really as a self-service and basically have like close to zero operation on the entire engineering. So it's working nice. There are fallbacks in case that's needed and so on. But yeah, not there yet. It's a perfect state. It's nice for a vision definitely, and we are working towards it.
Cool. How do I guess connect the topic with the question on the it's a past question. I'm not taking a new one. There was a question on like what's the right stuffing of platform, what's the size, etc. And I think what's important to realize that from the point of the business, we are not the value creators, so we are kind of a cost to the business. So basically, our aim should be to minimize the investment needed for platform, but obviously keep it available for us to be successful and not let the business fail. But in that way, we want to be more and more efficient, and the ratios should basically get larger and larger as we scale. It was what you mentioned with kind of the sublinear growth. And self-service is something that can help us on that, so that we kind of become more efficient as a platform. So it's not about just the experience, but also about the efficiency of the platform. But I would say it does not end there, right? If I have this analogy that I thought about over the weekend, is that before self-service, if you go to buy something in Tesco, you have basically the cashier lady basically there, and you're basically buying the stuff together in a way. Self-service is now with the self-service cashiers, when you can go and just buy the stuff. Obviously it never works. It's like alcohol is a problem, then it does not weigh the amount it should have weighed, and like there needs to be someone around, but they're more efficient. But then you have Amazon, who launched no cashier stores, right? And you just go there, you pick stuff, and you go out, and you pay for it seamlessly, and you don't even know about it. And there is maybe a level even beyond that there should be someone who recommends you like what to buy. Like, we know you love carrots, and it's now a season, and they are actually on sale. You should buy them. That's kind of the proactive service on top of the automated solution. And I was thinking how we on platform can basically learn from that and not stop at self-service, but actually push it even further to automate the stuff completely, to make it proactive. I think like automated code reviews and stuff that are a great example of kind to proactively shift some practices on the product side as well. if you have, yeah, you don't need to just answer my questions. You can also speak proactively. Let's take another question. Do you see platform teams cannibalizing the product teams? Wow. Talented people moving to platform. It's always nice to work in your domains of expertise after all. Good question. Jiří, are you stealing people from product?
I don't think so. I would actually say quite the opposite, because different people have different tastes, and you have engineers who really want to understand the needs of the end customers and be on customer calls and collaborate closely with the product managers and really understand their domain and what they are building, and they are really passionate about delivering the value to the outside world. And then you have the type of engineers who prefer more to be experts on a specific topic. They want to go really deep in their knowledge, and they want to be more technology oriented than product oriented. It's again a spectrum, so it's not binary. But I would say on the platform side, we hire more of the type of engineers who are technology oriented, whereas on the product side, you hire the people who are more product oriented. So I don't think we've been actually even really competing in terms of hiring so far, because we are looking for slightly different types of personalities.
Good. Martin, have you seen something different in your teams, or the same?
At one point, I was managing the platform team of 15 engineers, and lowest level was senior. So seniors, leads, principals, and I didn't like it actually. And then we changed the approach there. But yeah, usually platform engineers move internally because they already have the know-how. They want to do more technical stuff. It's really hard to hire from outside. It's possible, but it's like difficult. So how we are tackling it is the same, like pushing platform engineers to go and help out products time to time, so that product engineering won't suffer. Yep.
And it's also a challenge, right? That we said that, it's quite similar. I see that, kind of product-oriented people want to work in product, technical-oriented people want to work on platforms, but we said platform is a product as well. And on the other hand, product is a platform as well, in a way as well. So like then the challenge becomes, how do we make product people more technical, and how do we make technical people more product-oriented? So I guess it's very hard to make it in practice, but it would be actually great to have mixture of everyone everywhere, so that we have like a diverse team. It's a cool word too.
Well, the rotation of the people is always like very healthy exercise for everyone. There is like
Definitely
a huge amount of learnings on the both sides actually.
Let's do a little confession circle. We act like we know everything around platforms, but it's not the case. We have struggles, and these all questions are even hard for us to answer. Stano, what do you see as the biggest struggle now with the platform teams? What is something you haven't figured out yet?
From the operational perspective, we are fighting basically amount of like tickets. That is something of what I mentioned before, that really platform as a service versus like ticket response reactive approach. So that's from the operational perspective. It's something what we need to figure it out rather sooner than later. From the strategic perspective, I feel that platform might be actually center of the internal community. So if we are talking about the engineers, about the production engineers, I really like the Spotify example. So they build big backstage and they build a lot of other tools, but actually anyone from production engineering could come in, build a tool, and really upsell it to the entire company. And this is something what I would love to see actually happening in Kiwi. That platform is not just yet another team, but it's an internal community when anyone can go and contribute and actually taking the products out of that.
So it's like a distributed platform.
To some extent, yeah.
Martin, what is the biggest challenge for you now in platform?
I guess it has always been the prioritization. I am putting together this Pipedrive engineering roadmap with projects in platform engineering. And on the other side, product is making their plans. And at some point, we need to start comparing those projects because some of the resources shared. So putting a price tag or the price, calculating it, what is the return of investment of a platform project? This is difficult. It's doable to some extent, but sometimes, yeah, you not have to threat, but if you have seen really bad times regarding product performance, then you have always something to refer to and calculate what would it cost if we see similar incident again.
Cool. Jiří, what's your challenge?
For me, I would say the biggest challenge is not having the crystal ball, as Stano mentioned. So making sure we stay aligned with the wider company strategy and our roadmap reflects the long-term business needs. It requires you to be in many places, consume a lot of information sources, seek a lot of validation from the stakeholders. So I would say that's the most tricky part for us right now.
I should also do my confession. What to pick? There is so much. So definitely some of the things you mentioned, I think like putting an ROI on top of some of the platform projects or teams is pretty challenging and takes time. And overall, the topic of how do we determine that we are successful in what we do. We are trying a lot of things. Some of were mentioned, but we haven't tried them for a long enough time to actually see that happening. Then also from like more like an operational point of view, with the scaling of the business, we see a lot of pressure on infrastructure itself, and it seems like we just don't have enough people, and these ratios are like basically going a bit narrower, I guess. So we need more SREs and infra guys than I would imagine we would need to do, but it seems like every project kind of that touches infrastructure is like super urgent and cannot basically wait. So what we are kind of trying to experiment with is something like you have in Pipedrive, this notion of mission teams. So it's not, so the structure can get a bit more flexible and we can get help of other platform, but also product teams basically with our work. Cool. I see it's 7 o'clock. Let's transition it slowly to questions. There is quite a few of them. We are also taking live questions from the audience, I hope. Yes, we are. But let's take one that's on Slido. It says, when does it stop being a platform and start being a product? Should you maintain microservices in platform engineering? For example, a messaging API for emails. What would you say, Stano?
Good question. Yes and no, and depends on the company and the platform team. That's super tricky to answer. In our case, we have team, like production team, which is responsible for transactional like messages, and is responsible for a couple of mailing APIs. So in this case, no. But I can easily imagine, especially in smaller teams or smaller startup, that this might be really well used, because we can see that there is a lot of services needing, which needs to send the emails, and we can like put it under the one roof. So it really depends on the size, on the infrastructure versus monolith, and all the like needs of the company.
I would just add to that you have to realize that every product is a platform, and every platform is a product, is just a layer. Basically, for example, we are building on Microsoft Azure, so that's a platform that we build on top of our platform. On top of that, we build our product, but our customers basically treat the thing as platform. They build much more basically on top of it, so it's just another layer. I guess the kind of rule of thumb is that within one organization, platform is something that has mostly internal customers, so other people basically internally using it. Product is something that's exposed to basically external customers more.
I have a mental framework for it that we don't deliver immediate value to our end customers. This is where you draw the line between platform and product. So given the example, we would, for instance, deliver the messaging framework or the messaging API, but we wouldn't be responsible for figuring out what messages we are sending and when.
Cool.
So similarly, the approach has been that if any product manager cares about it, it's product. Otherwise, it's okay. So
that's a good one. So if you use all of them together, you have quite a good heuristics for that. Do we have any live questions? We have.
It was mentioned that Muse and Products Board has a dedicated design team as part of platform team. So I have maybe two questions, depending on the answer on the first one. So what is the responsibility of this team? Is it design of new services or what?
I'll try to repeat the question, also confirm that it was the question. It was that in some of our companies, design is part of the platform, right?
It was named as design team.
Yeah, okay. Design system is also in Product Board, right?
Yes, so we have a design system team, which this design system in our case is a set of reusable components, UI components that you can use across the product. We try to deliver the design system components with high quality, making sure they are extensible, responsive, etc., etc. So when you have menus, drop downs, buttons, pop-up windows, these kind of things, you can just take them, use them, customize them according to your needs, and then you maintain a certain quality bar, and you also maintain consistency across the whole product.
We have it pretty much in the same shape. I would say that this design team or platform design team, it's a kind of layer in between the front end and clients engineers, speaking about the mobile and the JavaScript developers for the front end, and the design team is actually trying to design the components, so UX team intentionally, so how the component, what's the layout and what's the best thing. So this is in the middle, and basically both sides are using the same component in different tooling, obviously.
Does it answer the question?
Yeah, just for the system design.
Oh, no, it's not.
No,
But I guess I would say that basically every department has a platform team. They just don't call it that way. Sometimes they call it ops, sometimes enablement, sometimes BizOps, something else. But basically everyone has kind of enablement function that helps others to do their job better. In engineering, it's just that in other departments, it's always like someone technical to do that usually. In engineering, everyone is technical, so the line is kind of dotted. We answered that question, the first one already, at least I hope so, the answer so that we have. The next one we have is, what position should platform team take between product and data teams in terms of providing data from product backends? So we have a data question. So
I can take that. We also have data platform team, and in our case, basically in the data platform team, the responsibility is that they are building the data lake with respect of the quality of the data and like proper data lineage. So if you need to build data about the specific customer, specific booking and so on, it's going from many databases, like various databases. And what we try to do is we are trying to put it into the one place when we have ensured the data quality, when we have ensured the proper definition of the data. And on top of that, we have like business analysts and so on. They could just take the data with the trusted quality and use them for their own work analysis, reports, and so on.
You too, do you also have data teams as part of the platform?
Yes, and I have pretty much nothing to add to what Stano mentioned.
We do also, but the difference is that product is not dependent on data team. Our data warehouse, we don't expose it in any how the data in our data warehouse to our customers, the product. If we want to create a product feature, we kind of build it. Reporting as an example, we build separately. We have a clear distinction line between those internal use versus data that is exposed to the customers.
Cool. I'll just add that in Muse we have this data platform, but data analysts building the report for specific features that are embedded in the product team, so they are not part of platform, but data engineering, data science, and also some data analysts in a way are also part of the platform. But I'm afraid to talk too much because Vojta, our data science guru, is watching, and if I say something wrong, he will kill me tomorrow. Any live questions? No. Okay, let's continue on Slido. So what's the relationship between platform teams and operations, customer success? Here I'm not sure if operations and customer success means like within R&D or in other teams. It seems like different departments, right? So operations, I guess, is support and customer success. So what's the relationship between platform teams and operations and customer success in your organizations, if there is any?
What I can tell is that platform teams have built custom tooling for other parts of the organization, like customer success. But right now we are so big already that we are trying to get rid of this custom tooling and then bring in like proper solutions.
Okay, I would maybe answer the question about the operations because customer success. I'm not sure like what should I imagine like behind it because maybe on the nature of the company.
Like account management, etc.
Yeah, but we are also like B2C company. It's a bit different.
Yeah,
okay, regarding the ops, as I mentioned that it should be ideally basically the platform should have as less operational requests as possible and having enabled the self-service. On the other hand, we don't have this kind of like SRE team approach or whatever in the company. We have the strategy that you build it, you run it.
At Product Board, we have a team that provides engineering capacity to the operations and go to market and customer success, etc. It's called BizOps, but we don't consider it as a part of like the core engineering platform. It's definitely a useful team to have. But for me, engineering platform, as I see it, is defined by the fact that your customers are your colleagues from the product engineering. So this is actually a team that is also reporting to me, coincidentally, but I don't see it as part of the topic that we are discussing here today.
I would say in Muse is definitely the data warehouse and exchange of data is a big kind of cooperation point. Then also, since kind of platform engineering in a way owns the incident response, and usually incident response is something that support is part or as well. So there are some overlaps, but I'm not sure it's kind of a major topic to talk about. Good. Yes, we have a question from live audience. Kuba.
Thank you. I have a question about mobile app development. So I'm not sure if all of your companies have actually mobile apps, so it might not be relevant for everyone. But I would like to ask, like, if the development of your mobile apps is structured in the same way, and I mean the division between like product part and platform part? And if yes, what's in that mobile platform part, right?
Stano, I used the Kiwi app last week, so I
Good.
know you have a mobile development.
We do, yes. Yeah, great question. I hope it was like clear on the video as well. We have structured our R&D, our product and engineering into the like product domains. So we have, for example, section of the search, we have section of the booking, section of the manage my booking, and in those product domains we have let's say backend, front end, and mobile. So this is the production kind of engineering what we have. On top of that, we have kind of mobile platform, mobile core, which is responsible for like first thing or some kind of like technical activities about the mobile application, because we have like 2 code bases. We don't have, I don't know, hundreds of them as we have for backend, obviously. So they are taking care about the modularization, how do we track things, how do we measure stuff, what's the speed of the application, and so on. And on top of that, they are also trying to do some kind of like core mobile features. So how do we treat push notification in the mobile application and so on. Does that answer?
Anyone else have a mobile app? The mobile apps we have in use are not so large. So currently we don't have like a dedicated platform team for mobile, but we have a staff engineer who is sitting over there, Kirill. So he's basically partly a one-man platform in a way as well. And we have a mobile engineer who is part of the design system team actually. So working on the design system implementation on mobile as well.
We have a separate mobile platform team, which is responsible of our native apps, iOS and Android. And we are seeing that it doesn't scale anymore. We need to do something about it. Mobile is lagging behind all the time. Product is inventing new features which will be available in the web. And then after half of the year, maybe it appears on mobile. So, but to basically we're moving towards your model and maybe changing the technology as well to React Native, so that the competence, we don't need to bring the iOS and Android competence to each of the product teams, but maybe React Native is something that product teams can write.
We tried React Native and wasn't working well.
Ah, okay. Maybe we should talk about it later.
Yeah, we can talk. Just small sidewalk. The thing is that if you already have like build application native way, there is a lot of operations trying to create a connection between the native and the React Native or whatever other technology.
Yeah. Well, we will ditch native if we go that way, but we have to make the decision.
Cool. I was asking the questions the whole time, but I would also love to ask you if you have any question that you would like to give to the rest of us. You can think about it. In the meantime.
So I can go. I have a question. So in your companies, if you as platform, if you build certain products that solve a given problem, do you then mandate the product engineering teams to use the specific product that you developed, or do they have the freedom to choose anything they want to solve the same problem but differently?
Great question. Stano, how directive are you?
I would say we have like a lot of technologies which are not supported by a platform team because team specifically decided that they wanted to go the direction and they are accountable and responsible for that specific technology. So we try to cover mostly the standard stacks and standard tooling. But if there is a business need for, I don't know, like Scala application in production, I cannot hire like a couple of developers to platform team just for 2 repositories or 1 repository there. So it doesn't make sense. And rather I would keep the experts about the technology in that production team. So freedom, but responsibility.
With great power comes,
Yeah.
Martin, what about your approach to?
We had I guess, more freedom in the early days. Right now, we have limited the set of storage engines Drive can use. There has to be a really good explanation why to bring in new technology. We write microservices in Node.js, not Rust or other language. The same reason, the soon you bring in new technology, you need to build this platform environment around it, all the libraries, and then this is expensive and needs to be really well justified, not only that Rust is a cool language and
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in Muse, in the early days, more things were centralized. So we strived for consistency, basically kind of over freedom, so that everything is kind of stays the same, is the same, etc. But with scaling, we see the trend of decentralizing more and more, especially when mergers and acquisitions come into place. Then basically your stack gets really heterogeneous in that way, and it's very hard to keep it kind of centralized. What I've seen with other companies that we haven't implemented is that it's basically too extreme. Either you have one option or a total kind of chaos. So what they did is basically go for the middle option. So you had like 4 options basically to choose from for different use cases, but not an infinite amount basically. So yeah, but I think it's a really good topic, and like everyone in platform needs to take into an account that if they develop something and nobody adopts it, is useless. It's same as if we develop the product feature nobody uses, and it's a lot of effort for sometimes for the engineers on the product side to adopt our solutions, and takes a lot of time. So we really have to be appealing in what we want them to do and what we want them to restrict to, and every domain is a bit different. So okay, let's take something from the audience. We have
I actually had this question that
Okay.
in my head. Platform has been like layers: infra, engineering platform, then product platform, because we are building multiple products and there is this layer. And what we would like to see and have seen, that those layers, you can see only the layer on next to you. Like product engineers shouldn't be worried about infra layer at all. How do we call it then? Is infra plus my engineering platform view the one engineering platform? Is there a difference between operational part and then the pure software development in engineering platform? Should there be a line between them or not? Or because I'm an exception here in Pipedrive, we have separated them, but I know that a lot of companies have them in one unit, engineering platform and infra. So
Yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, actually it showed us that it's a bit of advantage to have them together, because at some applications or at some specific product, you don't need to take care that much, for example, about the speed of the application. If there is something a request could take 3 seconds for whatever reason, it's quite okay. So you don't need to take care that much about the infrastructure. So what machines you are running there and what kind of services are you using, generally speaking, or if you have some kind of backend batch processing or whatever else. But for some, when you are actually looking for a super high performance application, it's great that the people actually are sitting together and are able to think and have the entire context about this is the best what I can get from the software technology, speaking about the programming language libraries and so on, and this is the best what I can get from hardware, either provided directly or through the whatever service.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, my mental model is built around the fact that we as engineering platform, we don't deliver any immediate value to the end customers. And I just accepted the fact that you have different layers. You operate on different levels of abstraction. I don't see an issue with that setup. So in our case, infra is part of the engineering platform, and it works pretty well.
Yeah, for us, it's also single platform. I think that what you mentioned is a good point, that they should not care about the internals, but I don't think it imposes any limitations on the structure, just on kind of the way we communicate and what's kind of the interface of the platform towards the other teams. Thank you for the question. Stano, you now have to also have a question.
I was actually thinking, guys, how do you solve in your company that once you are building the tools or whatever procedures for like your engineering, what do you think about the open sourcing it? So is your strategy that at some point you can actually extract the logic of like purely tool versus business logic you need to have for running your application and put it to outside and let it be as an open source?
We would love to open source more. We have some open source projects, but we have also seen it takes time to open source something to get it to a quality that you can open source it. So we are trying to take that approach, but it takes time to open source something.
I hate it when you open source something and it doesn't have the proper documentation. You don't respond to issues. Like it basically becomes abandoned piece of code that's useless without the organizational context. So I think if you want to do open source well, you need to have the capacity for it, and you need to dedicate the time and the people who will maintain it properly. And it would be awesome. Like we would love to do it more, but there's no capacity for it right now at the current stage of development of the company. So it's something that we will hopefully get to a bit later, but not right now.
This open source topic landed on my table like 4 years ago, and then I found out that there were like 100 public repositories in GitHub full of crap. Like I was so embarrassed to look at those, and then I immediately deleted half of them and found the owner of the other half. Eventually, out of 100, maybe we have around 10 public repositories, open source something, but it's a dangerous path to take. Like as you said, someone needs to own it and maintain it.
It seems like Pipedrive hired you to just delete half of the Pipedrive. Cool. So let's get back in those. I think we have 10 minutes. All right. Let's get back to those questions on Slido. Imagine you have a technology that only one team is using and it's slowly growing to other teams. When does the platform take it over? Yuri, one.
We have a rule of thumb that the when is when it's being used by more than one team. But it depends. It depends on the capacity, if we have the skills, or if that team that built the piece of the technology is willing to transfer some of their people with the knowledge along with the technology. It depends. But as a general rule of thumb, we try not to build things that would be only used by a single engineering team. So the basic condition is that it needs to be a bit more widespread, and then we can take it over. But the conditions, I would say, will vary case by case quite a lot.
I guess important part here is that platform at least knows that some product tribe started to use some new technology, so they can make the decision at that point. Do we have resources to take it over to platform right now, or let's talk about it in half a year when it's in use? But sometimes it doesn't happen. So.
Cool.
Yeah, probably we have similar approaches as Jiří said. So more of like teams are using that, but it has its exceptions because we ended up in the state of having like, I don't know, 50 plus products or libraries we had to take care of. So that's a lot. And in that case, more about if it's something which might be like used like widely in the company. Mainly because, for example, we have some tools which might be used just, for example, that email service question with like free services or free teams around sending the emails. Let's call it this way. So in that case, it's like really up for a discussion, and also the capacity issues is everywhere. So that's very valid dimensions as well.
The next one is: do you have some war stories to share? That's always a dangerous one. For example, did your platform team miss the target and delivered something useless for product teams? A lot. I'm not sure if it was a complete disaster, but I think there is a lot of examples of this. I think a common friction point is when platform introduce something for everyone, and then we found out it's not good for everyone, either being some alerting or some policy or some new technology or basically something that we force upon everyone. People usually don't like it. So I guess it also speaks to our previous topic of kind of centralization, decentralization, that especially as the company scales, you should not expect that everyone will like it, similar to how in product, if you develop a feature, not all customers will like it. So I think we have some stories from that, basically. It seems like you're nodding, so it's not just the case in Muse.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Like one of the more specific example, as we know, Backstage, created by Spotify. We had this developer portal. We started to develop it on our own in 2017-ish, I would say. Yes, and actually we have a lot of data there, but the adoption rate is not that good as we expect it to be. It's not just the first thing the developers open every day in the morning to check up the status, applications, and so on. So yeah, that's that thing probably which is still useful, but it missed its own target a lot.
I think I can also add one. My last thing I think I programmed was adding automapper into our solution. I'm not sure if you know what it is, but basically a thing that automatically magically maps DTOs to DTOs, so like entities to DTO, so you don't have to write the mapping code on your own. And I introduced it, and we forced it for every team to basically use it in their code. And now I saw a proposal from someone to delete that thing. So that was encouraging to see, but yeah. Any other war stories?
We have one story around Node.js bootstraps or the service template, or how to call it. So it happened so that in parallel, two of our engineering sites, which were apart from each other like 3,000 kilometers, started to develop their own bootstrap and built a lot of services on top of those for years. So now what we did last year, what do? Like you write the third one. So that's what we did last year. But actually the good thing is that 100% of all the new services are written on that new third one. So it will take time, some 5 years, but we will get rid of those old ones.
Cool. So next question. It doesn't seem like a question. Peppa, I don't know what you're talking about. All we do is super useful. Yes. Definitely. It's only me though. So from the time I'm not programming anymore, everything we do there is super useful. Is reduction of cognitive load for their teams, we have someone French in the audience, I guess, something your platform engineering teams focus on? Reducing of cognitive load. I would say yes, but I would also say that this is something that every product in the world focuses on. In a way, what you're doing basically for your customer is to try to reduce some of their pains, and that's like a very general concept. But yes, as a platform, I think another way to say what platform is reducing of cognitive load for product engineers so they can focus on their stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Abstracting complexity is part of the mission.
Cool. We have, what's the time? We have 1 minute, so let's take one more question. Is there some live question? There is, so let's take that one.
Hello. I would like to ask, how do you approach convincing other teams, the product teams, to adopt your changes? And do you set some, let's say, like baseline adoption rate, or do you force those things upon them? How do you approach this in general?
So, do we bribe them or what do we do?
Okay, I can start. I believe it's heavily dependent on the feature and on the specific product, right? So if we decided that we would have like unified design system, so we all like obviously ask people from the teams which are going to adopt it to come and contribute and asking for the feedback and so on. Maybe there is like one thing which is more directive, and it's about the security usually. So if in case we need to fulfill whatever certification, or we need to step up the game for like various vectors of the attack, we need to go and enforce it. Other than that, and this is actually the long tail, it's just the adoption, and this is heavily dependent how good we are at the product management of the platform team. So if we are building the right things for the right customers.
I would say that given there is some time for the product teams to actually work on technical stuff, if that's not the problem, then they are working on technical stuff, but not what platform is producing. So I guess it's a question of misalignment. Like, are we working on stuff that it's not important for them? Do we not have kind of the shared understanding and goals of what we want to achieve there? So I guess the first question I would ask on a platform team when I'm seeing my feature not being adopted is basically, what am I doing wrong? Similarly, again, to the product, if I ship a feature nobody's using, I'm probably doing something wrong. I will not force it on the on the users basically to use that feature. On the other hand, we have to manage kind of the anarchy as well, so we have to put something centralized in place. So I guess security and some really basic stuff I would advise to kind of put in place, but it's a matter of balance.
So in general, the pull model works, not the push. Yep.
Yes.
For the push model, you need wider alignment. So whenever there is a requirement to push something, when we are talking about security, resiliency, availability, these important topics, there it makes sense to push something from the top. So you need to ensure that it's part of the top level strategy, top level guidance. You are not just trying to push it from the side or from the bottom, because then you will likely fail. So whenever we need to do something engineering wide, we explain it to the wider leadership why we need to do it, what's required from all the product teams, and make it part of the guidance. And then I agree that if you see lack of adoption on something which is not strictly required, then you've probably done a bad job in terms of the product management, because ideally the adoption should happen organically, and you should build the things so good that people will want to adopt, they will want to participate in the beta and get their hands on the new cool stuff that you are building, because ideally it solves some of their pain points, and if they adopt it, it will make their lives better.
So I believe we are over time. So thanks everyone. Thanks for your attendance here and for all the questions, even yours. I think there is still a lot to explore in platform engineering. As we said, there is not enough resources. So I'm glad we had this 90 minutes to enrich the world in this topic. And yeah, thanks for all attending. I think I really enjoyed the discussion, and I usually say see you later, but I'm not sure I will actually see you later. Like on the YouTube here, of course.
I just
Yes.
take the word as well.
Yes,
So
correct me.
Yeah.
This was terrible. Just
well, I hope Papa will see somebody of you, and you'll still have some time to enjoy all the speakers and everybody who's here. So enjoy this and use this opportunity if there are some questions that were maybe unanswered. I hope the panelists weren't too intimidated by Peppa, by requesting you to speak, requesting to ask. But I guess he just followed the beginning of the school year, and he always wanted to be a teacher, so he kind of used that today as well. And Some organizational things for you here. Who came here for pizza? Please, there is some, and there is gonna be more in 10 minutes. The vault says it's gonna be 10 minutes, so I believe it. And to you, everybody on YouTube, thank you for watching, and hopefully not just Peppa, but we'll all see you sometimes somewhere else. All right.